interaction I had with Lieutenant Colonel Gavin Jacob on the 27 October 2021 at the FSL in Amanzimtota relating to the 22nd July 2021, or sorry, 22nd June 2021 seizure of 541 kilograms of suspected cocaine. I have been informed by the Commission that my evidence may be of an assistance in the Commission's work regarding the seizure and the subsequent theft of the drugs from the forensic premises of the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigations, known as DPCI. Part B, 27 October 2021. On 27 October 2021, I was in my office at the FSL when Colonel Jacobs, who was a Lieutenant Colonel at the time, approached me. I had recently been involved in a seizure in Simbiti where Colonel Jacob was involved. However, when he came to my office, he told me that he had been there to see Captain Gubega and wanted advice from me. Colonel Jacobs' inquiry was in 4 parts. First, he asked me for my advice on how to destroy exhibit. I told him that I am not involved in destruction and that the best person to speak to is Colonel Kuzwai, the section commander for chemistry section. Secondly, he asked if destroying the exhibit will affect the case. He told me his inquiry relates to samples of exhibit that DPCI had brought to the FSL. I was not familiar with these samples. I informed him that it was essential to have a record of the total mass of the exhibit. And if the exhibits are going to be destroyed, the analyst will not be able to establish the total mass of the exhibits that were seized. I explained that in order to determine the total mass, the analyst will need all the exhibits and that he or she cannot determine the total mass of the total mass with the sample with the use of the samples. The analyst will count all exhibits, but only where a certain number of the exhibits, and if there is a big variation between the first weighed exhibit, the analysis will need to weigh. It's supposed to be weigh more exhibit to determine the total mass of the exhibit. I told him that this was something he needs to discuss with Colonel Kuza because she would know more. Thirdly, Colonel Jacobs asked me if one of the members in my team, the 10 lab team, could analyze the case. I told him that since the case, the limited exhibits or samples were brought to the FSL as opposed to a crime scene analyst bringing it to the FSL, the case will be analyzed by anyone. Lastly...
Sorry. I'm not sure of the distinction you are seeking to draw here. I told him that since the case was brought to FSL as opposed to crime analyst bringing it to FSL, the case could be analyzed by anyone. Can you just explain to me what distinction you are seeking to draw here?
Okay. The distinction I was drawing here, Chair, is that the laboratory receive exhibits in two ways. The first way is when exhibits are brought by the station to the lab. The second way is us, the clandestine laboratory team, who goes out and attend the clandestine laboratory, which are chemical investigation, where drugs are being manufactured, being synthesized. Then we bring those exhibits, we take samples and bring those exhibits to the lab. That was what I was explaining to him.
Does the distinction not also relate to who then does the analysis? Because you say at the end, the case could be analyzed by anyone.
Yes.
Which case, which type of case? Of the two examples you are giving, which case would be analyzed by anyone?
The one that
which case cannot be analyzed by anyone, and why the distinction?
Okay, what I was explaining to him is that since the case was brought to the lab by an investigating officer, those cases are allocated to analysts, to any analyst that is in the lab. But the cases that we bring as crime scene investigators, we bring in, the lab register it and allocate it back to us. That was
So if you fetched, then you analyze.
If I fetched, then I analyzed. But also, Chair, if they brought, because it's not that you get crime scenes every time. If I'm done doing crime scenes, then I go to the lab, and then they allocate cases for me. That
But why that distinction? Why must you analyze those that you brought in, and those that were brought by an investigator may be analyzed by anyone? Why can't the ones that you bring in be analyzed by anyone? Why does it matter that you brought those in?
Because at the lab, the clandestine laboratory team, when you after 2 years, you can apply to do clandestine laboratories. Then you get a different training, an extra training from drug analysts, just to process clandestine laboratories. That is the distinction. At the lab, there are analysts that does analysis on cases that are brought to the lab by investigators. And there is the clandestine laboratory team that go and do clandestine processing of synthesis cases. That is discovered.
What's clandestine and what's not, where narcotics are involved?
Okay.
I would have thought everything is clandestine.
Yes. Yeah.
No, Chair. The lab, when police officers are doing their work, they arrest someone with 10 capsules, right? They will book those 10 capsules into the dating, then they bring to the lab for analysis. But when we are talking about clandestine, it's when at a particular house they were synthesizing the substances that are listed in the Drug and Trafficking Act. Then there is chemicals, there are precursors, there is final product. Then that particular type of case is done by us clandestine laboratories. Yes.
It's clandestine drug laboratories. That is the manufacturers where they manufacture illicit drugs.
Yes.
And so because it entails chemicals, precursors and that, it requires special skills in order to analyze that. When you attend a scene as a clan lab analyst, you have those specialities and that skill to identify precursors.
Yes.
And you would then take them. But not every analyst at FSL has that special skill or training to identify precursors.
Correct, Council.
And so when Chair asks for clarity on the first part where it says was brought to the FSL, that would be brought by an investigating officer who has made a recovery, such as at a harbor or a depot, and they could bring that in.
Correct.
Yes, and the second one is where you, as a clan lab analyst, you've been called out to a scene because it's identified as a clan lab or suspected clan lab, and you would then bring the exhibits in.
Correct.
Okay, so you may continue then. 6.4.
Okay. Lastly, Colonel Jacob asked if I knew who attends the distraction. Again, I refer him to Colonel Kuzwa. Colonel Jacob then received a call.
I want to take you back to the last sentence of paragraph 5. There you say, he said, however, when he came to my office, he told me that he had been there to see Captain Kubeka and wanted advice from him. Why did he end up seeking advice from you? Was Captain Kubeka not there?
She was there in the office.
It says
Sorry?
advice from me, Chair. He says you had been there to see Captain Kubeka and then wanted advice from me. So from him. Yes.
All right. Oh, so he had been there to see Captain Kubeka for something else,
For something else.
presumably.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Yes,
I'm
Chair.
sorry.
Can I just get clarity? Why do you link all of this to the drugs mentioned in paragraph 4? Because it's not clear to me that the inquiry in 5 and 6 is related to the drugs at 4, even from your statement. Or was it a general inquiry?
It was a general inquiry.
So it was not specific to the drugs in paragraph 4? Because in paragraph 4, you talk about the purpose of the statement is to explain your interaction with Colonel Jacobs relating to, then you mentioned the 541 kilograms of suspected cocaine. But then when you get to 5 and 6, you seem to be talking about exhibits in general and not the drugs in 4. So I just want to be clear that when he came to you, he was specifically asking about the exhibits which form part of the drugs that were seized on the 22nd of June 2021.
No, when he came to me, he talked about the samples they brought to the lab.
But were
General.
those samples part of the drugs that were seized on the 22nd of June 2021?
No, he didn't state that they were.
He didn't say
He
that?
didn't state that.
Okay.
Commissioner Kumalo, he does clarify on the last page of his statement that when he found out that the two are connected. Okay, you may proceed. Paragraph 7.
Maybe before you proceed, in 6.3, where he said, he asked if one of the members in my team could analyze the case, was it a specific member that he asked about?
No, he asked that can one of the crime scene guys analyze the case?
Okay. And your answer in relation to how you're distinguishing the two, where you say the samples were brought in, if they were brought in, you make a distinction between that and where crime scene analysts have brought in the samples. What does it matter? Is your team a specialist team that analyzes specific drugs? Why would he ask, can a member, I'm trying to understand how it works and the kind of conversation you had with him. What is it that about your team, if at all, or about these samples that he was talking about, that it would matter that it's a member from your team or it's allocated to just anybody?
I will say, I was explaining to him that there is no need for us as crime scene guys, because most of the time DPCI work with us as crime scene guys. That is what I was explaining to him, that anyone can do a case that is brought to the lab by an IO.
So you didn't, it wasn't a case of he's looking for a special skill in your team. I'm just trying to understand.
No, that is what I was explaining to him, Commissioner, that the case doesn't need a special skill to be done. Anyone from the lab can do it.
Okay. But he didn't mention anyone in particular.
No, he
just
didn't
wanted
mention anyone in
to-
particular.
Thank you.
You may continue.
Yes, paragraph 7.
Paragraph 7.
Kenneth Jacob then received a call, and after his call, he informed me that it was Warrant Officer 4 regarding the Simbiti case. Thereafter, he said he would contact Colonel Kuzwayo, and he returned to Captain Gubega's office. Paragraph 8. I did not have a serious concern about Kenneth Jacobs' destruction question, although I found it strange that he will ask about destroying exhibit when the exhibit had not yet been analyzed. My real concern about the conversation was Colonel Jacobs' question about the possibility of one of the team members analyzing the case. When a case is assigned to an analyst, the investigating officer is not made aware of the identity of the analyst. In fact, if there are inquiries by the investigating officer regarding progress of the analysis, the inquiry is made with admin, who would then notify the analyst supervisor of the query, and the supervisor would engage the analyst and report back to the investigating office. This is to prevent undue influence or pressure.
Undue influence.
Oh, sorry. This is to prevent undue influence or pressure on the analyst.
Can you just elaborate on that? What kind of undue influence or pressure could be placed by an investigating officer on an analyst?
The first pressure is that they would ask, when will you issue the analysis report? That's the first pressure. And the other one is to say the progress of the process. Where is it now? So that they will say also the court will need to remind a case, and then when are you finishing it? So those are type of pressures that are there.
You also mentioned undue influence. How would that manifest?
Undue influence, Commissioner, will manifest by saying what is the case that we submitted. What is it before the report comes out, which is not the practice of the lab, because the practice of the lab is that the investigating officer will only know the results of the case that they've submitted when the 212 statement is issued to them. When the case has gone through all quality checks and everything, then a 212 statement will give it to them. So there's not the undue influence is you cannot give any information before the case, the 212 statement is issued out.
Ordinarily, when we speak about undue influence, it's about influencing a party to a particular outcome. That's what ordinarily undue influence would be. It's improper. It's, if you like, it's unlawful even. influence. What you're describing, that they would want information before, it sounds to me like it falls in the category of pressure, that they pressure you to give you information as you are working. Are you sure that when you speak of undue influence in your statement as one of the protection that is offered, because you say it in the context of why investigating officers would not speak to analysts, right? It has to be done through the supervisor. It's to protect the analyst and the institution from being influenced improperly. But you're not describing improper influence. Are you sure that is what undue influence in your environment, and as you mean it in the statement, is what you've just explained?
Let me say it like this, Commissioner. The influence that we are talking to, because the lab has this part of criteria. See, when you join the lab, you are trained, and then you go to a mentorship, and then you must be able to work independently without influence, even from the from your superiors in the lab who you report to. So they can't tell you what the results must be. That is the undue influence that I was talking about,
yes.
Which is to work independently. You must be independent in whatever conclusion that you...
That's my understanding too of undue influence. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner.
You may continue.
Therefore, Kenneth Jacob inquiry as to whether one of the crime scene analysts will analyze the case did not sit well with me. After my conversation with Colonel Jacob, I contacted my commander, Colonel Songa, and informed her about my conversation with Colonel Jacob. In particular, his inquiry about a crime scene analyst analyzing the case. I did not inform her about the destruction of exhibit because I had already told Colonel Jacob that the correct person to have the conversation, the correct person to have that discussion with was Colonel Kuzwai. Colonel Songa told me that since the case had been submitted to FSL, it will be allocated to any analyst, and that is as my commander, and that as my commander, she considered the request from an investigating officer for a specific analyst to analyze the case to be irregular. I have since been made aware that Colonel Jacobs stated that he had arranged for me to accompany him to TPCI office in Potchefstroom to collect few exhibits of the 22nd June 2021 suspected cocaine seizure. I deny that I have had a conversation with Kenneth Jacob about collecting exhibits which will be irregular. The only conversation I had with Kenneth Jacob about the exhibit is the conversation of the 27 October 2021. I only find out on 21 January 2022 that the conversation I had with Kenneth Jacobs on the 27 October 2021 was about the 541 kg of suspected cocaine.
How did you find out?
Chair, on January 21, 2022, there were guys from DPCI HQ who came to the lab. And when they came to the lab, they were looking for warrant officer Setshedi. I found them with Colonel Song. And then they said, we must go to... Then we went to Colonel Songa's office. And then when we reached Colonel Songa's office, then they said to the Colonel, no, Colonel, it's fine. We just want to ask questions to Warrant Officer Setshedi. And the first question that they posed is that we want our drugs. And I said, which drugs are you talking about? They said, the Poshifstin drugs. I said, the Poshifstin drugs, the one that is in the media. They said, yes. Then I said to them, I don't know anything about them. I've never seen them, the drugs. I've never seen the sample. I've never analyzed those drugs. So it's the first time that I'm hearing about that. I'm part of that. I'm an analyst or I have any role in that seizure.
And when those inquiries were made, was Colonel Jacobs mentioned?
Yes, they did ask me about Colonel Jacobs on the 27th of October. They asked me what happened on the 27th of October. Then I explained what happened.
Can you say exactly what they said about him?
They said, what was your conversation with Colonel Jacobs on the 27th of October? Then I explained the whole story about Colonel Jacobs, the 27th of October 2021.
Can we then go back to my question because it's still not answered? Colonel Jacob did not say what he's talking to you about on the 27th of October 2021. Is this 541 kilograms of cocaine?
No, he didn't say that.
So he could have been talking about drugs
Anything.
in general or
Yes.
exhibits in general.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yes. Thanks.
You say in that paragraph that I deny that I ever had a conversation with Colonel Jacob about collecting exhibits. But before that, you say you have since been made aware that he stated he had arranged for me to accompany him. Where does he state this? You were made aware that he says this where? Where he says he had an arrangement with you to go and collect the samples. Is it in the commission?
Since the first one was, I was made aware that I'm part of this on the 21st of January. The other ones is through the commission. I think it was the 5th when there was I think it was General Flynn who was presenting.
Okay.
And then he talked about a plan that had a date of the 15th of November.
Okay.
I was made aware through the commission. I didn't know what is happening.
Okay. And then you go on to say you deny that you had that conversation about collecting drug exhibits, which would be irregular. It would be irregular because that you go and collect samples.
No, it will be irregular because, Commissioner, the case was never allocated to me. So what happens at the lab is that for me to be an analyst of the case, they must first allocate the case to me. Then I will be I will be processing the case. But if the case is not allocated to me, then I can't do anything on a case that is not allocated to me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
And just to be clear, the case was never allocated to you.
Yes, Commissioner.
The only reason why you were interviewed by the investigators on the theft is because Colonel Jacob had told them about a conversation that he had with you.
Yes, that was they came with to me.
Okay. Now, if I could ask you to go to the information note that had been referred to previously, and that would be in the first exhibit file. So there's a file in front of you that would say Exhibit File 1. And it is CJC 232